Well, Ben, you still get to play. You just don't have a meltdown on your sideboard this weekend. That's all.
So what is nice, if you're playing at home and wanting to play the Omnitel deck and trying to figure out lines, the Burning Wish version is much simpler as generally in how it wants, in the ways it wants to kill. So you Burning Wish for Petals of Insight. You cast Petals of Insight 100 million times. Then you eventually draw another Burning Wish, and you Burning Wish for Grape Shot.
That's how you get it done.
That one's easy. There's no foresighting for cards you've never heard of. Right?
This way to do it is much more straightforward, yes.
There's one weird card, it's called Petals of Insight, but all you need to know is that you can just keep casting it. It is a 5-mana draw 3 that if you don't like your 3, you can return it to your hand.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about this build, though, is, again, that he can play a normal game with Young Pyromancer.
Yes.
And he's got 4 copies of that card, and then he's got Cabal Therapy and Cataxian Probe for disruption and be able to make a lot of elementals in one turn. So there's a lot that's actually going on, and then he's got this show and tell kind of backdoor package in his deck. So this should be kind of entertaining to watch as both these players are off to a good start here, and of course a very important tournament here for Danny Jessup. So yeah. Friedman going to start things off with a Cataxian Probe. You'll find a Brainstorm, a Spell Pierce, a Force of Will, a Spell Snare, a Flooded Strand, and a Volcanic Island.
On first glance, you might not think he's playing Temur Delver. I might think he was playing Stoneblade.
Yep.
That's really interesting. Actually, the moment we did that, I stopped and checked the deck list. I was like, that's Stoneblade. So it's some misdirection there.
No,
not the kind you'd expect, though.
No. So Ben's drawn a card. He's got a Volcanic Island in hand, also a Ponder over there. He'll start by playing a basic island. And he'll play a Preordain. So he'll scry 2. Burning Wish is 1, Young Pyromancer is 2. We'll see if he wants to keep either of those cards.
So to me, Ben, as far as metagames is concerned, Ben's choice is even more of an Omnitel deck than Omnitel in that it's a slow combo deck, and he's really like made it even slower, but he's made it more disruptive. I would expect this to be very good in combo mirrors, especially like against another show and tell style deck. These Cabal Therapies should be pretty good. It also gives it a little more of an honest game plan against control decks. It makes its bad matchups worse, probably. You know, like your Dredge matchup got even worse with this switch, probably, I would think, but that's fine.
I think a lot of people have bad Dredge matchups this weekend. Cabal Therapy, the draw here for Ben. Looks like he's got 3 of those in hand now and no black mana just yet.
Yeah, and I think that was tough. So with his Preordain, he had the option to take a Young Pyromancer, but didn't.
Yeah, for his Preordain, he put Young Pyromancer and Burning Wish to the bottom, but then he drew a Young Pyromancer for the turn. Or excuse me, off of the Preordain.
Sure.
It resolving. The issue here is that Jessup has that Spell Snare in hand.
Ben choosing to keep his cards up on, he's going to draw a Dig Through Time, has 2 more lands on top of his deck.
And that's going to do it, I think, for Ben's turn.
So right now, we do know 2 Cabal Therapies, no black mana. And with lands on top of his deck, there's a lot of pressure, I guess, on this Dig Through Time for Ben. His hand is light on action. Then again, if you look at Danny's hand, Danny's not doing too much better. He's got a very good control setup, but the Temur functions a lot better when it has a threat in play.
Yeah, the idea with Temur is to get a Nimble Mongoose or a Delver Secrets onto the battlefield and then start doing your cantripping and pondering, so you know exactly what you need to search for to be able to protect yourself and your threat and get the job done.
Yeah, and a lot of great blue cards in Danny's hand, but he needs just 1 green card to go with him.
So Danny going to resolve a Brainstorm here. You saw him play a fetch land to start things off. This allows him to play around days, but also to be able to fetch away with the Brainstorm to shuffle the garbage. Now he'll just pass the turn back. We'll go to Friedman. He'll draw a card. Picked up that Dig Through Time now. So he drew a land off of the Ponder. Left Dig Through Time as the draw step for the turn. Now he's going to search up a black mana source. And now we finally get to see some Cabal Therapy action.
It's really interesting. So when we talk about these Omnitel decks, generally trading lands when you're an Omniscience deck with Delver is good for Omniscience. Now, if you're playing a mono blue Omnitel deck, what's happening is you're trying to get a 7-card hand so that you can just crush the counter war when it happens. Ben's deck's a lot more straightforward. It's a little more proactive. So instead, he doesn't have that offensive counter magic. You know, he doesn't have these spell pierces in his deck or spell snares to win counter wars. Instead, what he has is he has these Young Pyromancers and Cabal Therapies to clear out the way that way.
Force of Will was the name here for Friedman. You see Jessup's hand. He's writing that information down. A Brainstorm, a Spell Pierce, a Stifle, a Daze, and a Spell Snare.
Yeah, so at this point, if you're Ben, I think you know that Danny's on Delver. Daze and Stifle are too strange for Stoneblade to be playing.
Even though you haven't seen the actual Delver threats, which solidify that thought process, you haven't seen Delver of Secrets, you haven't seen Mamagas, you haven't seen Tarmogoyf yet, I think you can draw that conclusion.
Yeah, you haven't seen a green mana, so it's still strange. But with no pressure, and it looks like no lands here, this is the bind you don't want to be in when you're the Delver player, because you may have a bunch of great blue spells, but if you just keep trading turns with the Omnitel deck, you're going to lose.
See, as soon as Danny searches up that tropical island, which he just has done, now I think it's been revealed. Okay, this is what you're up to. This is what you're doing. So Ben Friedman, a very savvy player and has had a lot of success in Legacy. He knows exactly what Jessup's up to now. It'll be time for some sort of cantrip, so here's a Ponder. That'll resolve. Jessup will take a look at those top 3 cards. We'll just see if he wants to keep them or not. The Lightning Bolt among them.
I think Danny really searching for a creature.
He'll keep it. There's a Misty Rainforest. He'll pass the turn back. We're going to head back to Friedman.
Yeah, I'd be interested if Danny actually draws any other cards out of that top 3, whether he just wanted the fetch land.
Again, Friedman does have 2 more copies of Cabal Therapy in hand. Looks like 2 dig through times of Burning Wish and then Volcanic Island.
Yeah. Not functioning on all cylinders here either. So he can use the therapies to clear the way if he has a card like Show and Tell, the Show and Tell combo in his hand. The other route is he could just draw Young Pyromancer and then therapy everything. He'd have to hit the Spell Snare first, so he could get Young Pyromancer, but...
There is the therapy.
Does Jessup want to... I believe he still has a Brainstorm. He could try to hide cards here. Does he want to do that?
Yeah, interesting situation here.
I think he wants to. The question for me is, does he crack the fetch land first?
Because he knows the cards that are on top.
Right. Because if you don't crack the fetch land and then you brainstorm, you are to hide your good. Remember, after you brainstorm, if you're brainstorming to hide the good cards, you're committing yourself to not cracking that fetch land for a couple turns because you need to redraw them. So if the cards on top don't help, and then you put your good cards on top, you are brainstorm locking yourself.
Well, Brainstorm was the name.
Well, yeah, well, once Danny doesn't cast it, I mean, you just have to name Brainstorm.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see Danny not use the Brainstorm in some capacity there.
Stifle and Daze among the cards there in Jessup's hand. He'll untap, he'll draw. So the card he kept on top, he wanted to draw. There was a copy of Tarmogoyf. That's a way to get the clock going, finally. Now he'll sacrifice that fetch land.
So it looks like he wanted one of the 2 remaining cards that he'd left on top.
Yeah, the other one was a Lightning Bolt. Looks like he's going to shuffle that away.
And that does make it hard to cast a Brainstorm there, and probably is why Danny didn't. Because he didn't want to shuffle away the Tarmogoyf, but he didn't want to draw the Lightning Bolt with it.
There's another tropical island, maybe. It's that or volcanic. Jessup just deciding which color he wants.
Remember, 7 cards in the graveyard for Ben, so he is set up for an end of turn dig through time. He knows there's a lot of counter magic in Danny's hand, so Daze plus Flusterstorm means the dig won't resolve. But he could get a 2-for-1 anyway. Or he could just therapy the Flusterstorm and then actually just get the dig to happen, which is, I think, the line he's looking to go to. Tarmogoyf only a 3-4. Ben's put himself down to 15, but he has some time.
Yeah, he's got some time, some life to work with.
His therapies are being really strong for him.
Looks like it's going to be dig through time.
I would be surprised to see him tap 3 because he knows about Daze. I don't think he wants to turn Daze into a card at any point. But if he taps 3, then he has to, if he only digs for 2, then he has to get rid of one of his therapies. And I don't know if he wants to do that either.
Yeah, it appears he doesn't, so he's just going to draw a card instead. Scalding Tarn.
Yeah. Fetch land is not bad here. Mana is still good at this point.
I'll start by playing one of those.
Yeah, remember, Danny has soft permission.
Well, here's therapy number 3.
Like this quite a bit.
Just a good way to carve a path.
I mean, yeah, and Ben can crack a fetch land. He can get rid of all these preordains, and if he can dig through time into some young pyromancers, then he just has forever. Now, I think the one sad part about cast, yeah, I mean, it doesn't even matter. He can play a pyromancer, he'd get 1 token, and then those tokens would just make more and more off the therapies.
Yep, just shred the hand.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because there's so many different ways he can go. If he finds a pyromancer, he can go down this therapy road of shredding your hand and making tokens. If he finds a card like Omniscience or Show and Tell, he can Burning Wish for maybe a little protection to push that through. So that's the thing about this particular build of Omnitel that Ben is playing, is that it has a couple different avenues it can go down.
So there is one Show and Tell in the Wish board for Burning Wish.
Yep.
He also has a copy of Innocent Blood in his sideboard, in his Wish board, which could be pretty relevant here if he actually finds that the Tarmogoyf becomes a clock.
Love it.
Relevant Wish board targets that are not part of the combo. Innocent Blood, Show and Tell, Void Snare, Thoughtseize, Shattering Spree.
Spell Snare is going to be hit. So Spell Pierce, Stifle, and Daze in hand.
Okay, so what's the plus term? It's a Stifle. So Pierce and Daze could make things cost up to 3 more. Interesting. Taking the Spell Snare, yeah, makes it seem like he's clearing the way for Burning Wish. Or is it for Dig? He has 2 dig through times. And if Danny wants this dig, he'll have to use both his counter spells on it.
There's Pierce.
By tapping that land, it means Ben can now crack his fetch land safe of the Stifle in Danny's hand.
And now Daze is going to take care of that. And I like what's happening here a lot on Ben's side, because he's got to get through these counter spells anyway. And so now, you know, Daze is going to take care of the dig through time in combination with Spell Pierce.
This still feels like a win for Ben.
Yeah, I mean, he's just got to plow through those counter spells, because now Jessup has 1 card left in his hand. That matters. It's a Stifle. The other one is a land because it was picked up from Daze. And now Tarmogoyf is the clock, and Ben has a Burning Wish, which is an answer to the Tarmogoyf because he can search up Innocent Blood, and then he's got to back up dig through time. Now, you know, the only thing that Ben can't control is what Danny draws for the turn, and he has to hope that Danny just doesn't draw that well.
Yeah, I mean, and he's getting 2-for-1s in a lot of ways. He got a 2-for-1 there because Danny used 2 counter spells to get rid of dig. He'll get a 2-for-1 off his own dig. He can kind of he's also getting virtual card advantage in the fact that this Stifle is just no good. Omniscience, the draw for Ben, gives him another thing he could do with that Burning Wish.
Yep.
I think he still goes the other route. It's safer. Maybe he leads on dig. Oh, no, he doesn't have 6 in graveyard yet. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I kind of like
just jam.
I mean, I always want to jam, but I kind of like wishing for Show and Tell here.
We'll see if it's for Show and Tell or for Innocent Blood.
Yeah,
I love just go for it.
Did you peel it or not? Yep, did. Okay. And the thing is, this isn't the end of the world because he still has dig through time in hand. Yeah. So if you drew the counter spell to take care of this and me putting Omniscience into play, okay, that's annoying, but that's life. But now you can move forward accordingly and say, all right, well, I have 5 cards in my graveyard now. Now I can cast Dig. You're playing a Delver Secrets, and I know the 2 cards in your hand are a Stifle and a land that you picked up with Daze.
Sure, so the coast is clear.
So now you draw. Brainstorm's the draw.
Oh, that's great. It makes mana. I mean, it's free because you don't have 6 cards in your graveyard yet. And who needs to dig when you just draw the Show and Tell?
Yeah.
And I think we are off to the races on this one.
Yeah, this gets a little bit interesting now because he gets to put 2 cards back. He can cast Show and Tell, put Omniscience onto the battlefield, cast Dig through time, and you would imagine be able to find what he's looking for to win the game. No guarantee, but Dig Through Time can work its way into either Burning Wish to win the game or Cantrips to work its way to Burning Wish.
And remember, with this version of Omnitel, the combo is just Omniscience plus Burning Wish.
Yep. So here's Show and Tell. The coast is clear. We already know that. There's Omniscience. Ataxian Pearl will be free. Let me see your hand. Yep, it's a Stifle, so that's the card he's got to play around. Now here's Dig Through Time. So you take a look at the top 7.
Does he hit? Oh, yes.
Well,
he's got some cantrips.
He's got some cantrips, so 2 Ponders and a Preordain are the options here.
Yeah, so now there's the interesting math of, do you want to take 2 Ponders or do you want to take Ponder Preordain? Because he's just looking for a singular card, both Ponders is probably the best thing he can do here.
The rest of these cards are going to go on the bottom. Again, every spell that Friedman plays is free right now, so he'll take a look at 3 cards. There's a Burning Wish right on top.
That should do it. So, execution of the combo is pretty straightforward. No Burning Wish. It's going to go get Petals of Insight. That one's a weirder one, but it's... He'll just cast this a lot of times, and he will always choose to put the cards on the bottom of his library. He'll just keep doing that, returning it to his hand, maybe a couple 100 times. Then eventually, when he sees a top 3 that has a Burning Wish in it, he'll choose to draw them, and they'll Burning Wish for Grape Shot. But there's a Stifle in Danny's hand.
Correct.
So it makes it a little more complicated.
So what Ben is explaining to him right now, as you see his hands moving back and forth, is what he is saying is that my deck is not in a multiple of 3. And because it's not in a multiple of 3, I can actually rearrange my deck. It will take a while, but because it's not directly in a multiple of 3, he can just say Petals, loop, 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 get into eventually where he's looping back where he's seeing a new card with his loop, and stack his deck.
Yes.
Because Petals of Insight is free every time, it takes no mana, and if Danny wants to make him go through that loop, he can do that. But Ben is basically saying, this is what I'm going to do, which is shortcut. Cast Petals of Insight, those 3 cards, take a look at 3 cards, set them accordingly. I can shift my entire deck around because it's not in a multiple of 3, so that I can find Burning Wish plus like Force of Will plus X.
Plus blue card.
Yeah, or whatever. And then Burning Wish for Grape Shot. When you cast Stifle on the Storm Trigger, counter it, or whatever I have to do to kill you.
In the situation that the deck's in multiples of 3, he can loop as many times as he wants, but the cards can never break out of their 3-card pack.
Correct. But when you're not in multiples of 3, you can.
Yes.
So, and even in that situation too, because all of his spells are free, he can even do something like, if I find Burning Wish plus Young Pyromancer in the same pile, play Young Pyromancer, flashback Cabal Therapy if he still has one in his graveyard, take care of your Stifle, cast Burning Wish, kill you.
It's a really inefficient sorting algorithm, though, I'll tell you that.
That's true. It can take a little while. But either way, Ben Friedman going to be currently up a game here over Danny Jessup. That's Legacy, folks, by the way. Petals of Insight can get the job done, depending on what deck you're playing. But we'll take a look at Jessup's sideboard right now of his Team Delver deck, which I imagine is pretty straightforward. He's got 3 Pyroblast here, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Submerge, 2 Rough Tumble, a Flusterstorm, a Life from the Loam, a Sulfur Elemental, an Ancient Grudge, a Sylvan Library, and a Winter Orb.
All right, so we're starting over on Danny Jessup's side. Yeah, what can he do to interact with this? It's a blue deck. These 3 Pyroblasts are going to be excellent in the matchup. He does need to give some credence to the fact that Ben has a Young Pyromancer plan. I don't know if he goes as far as to play Rough Tumble just to deal with Young Pyromancers. I think he still just stays on the side, on the mostly counterspell plans. Pyroblasts, Flusterstorms seem pretty good. Outside of that, I'm not sure there's too much he wants to be doing here.
For Ben Friedman, he's got a little bit of a Burning Wish package, as we know, so you'll find Grape Shot of Thoughtseize, a Void Snare, the Petals of Insight he used to win that game, along with a Shattering Spree, a Show and Tell to wish for, an Innocent Blood that can take care of creatures, along with Massacre. Then you'll find 3 Pyroclasms, 2 Pyroblast, and then 2 copies of Flusterstorm. Anything there stand out to you?
Extra counter spells seem reasonable. Flusterstorm or Pyroblast are both fine cards. Once again, it's a wish board, and is this a Pyroclasm matchup? I don't think so. It doesn't really kill enough here.
Yeah, I don't think that he wants to bring Pyroclasm in this matchup. It is interesting if he maybe wants to board in any wish targets, but I think I'd be a little surprised if he did that. Like, you can make an argument for boarding in the Innocent Blood, I suppose.
Yeah, boarding in wish targets is a little more interesting in a deck like a High Tide deck that also plays Merchant Scrolls, and sometimes you actually want them in your main. When you just have wishes and then traditional 1-mana cantrips, you generally just leave your targets in the wish board.
Okay, well, Jessup is ready to go. Friedman is finishing his sideboarding, so game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment, but we will very quickly talk about the Star City Games YouTube page. It's free to sign up for. Of course, you can subscribe, and if you do so, you'll find Versus Series archives, Premium archives, Open Series archives. Of course, you're watching the Open Series right now, and we have specialized content on our YouTube page, including unboxings with Evan Irwin, Chris Van Meter, Brian Bronduin, and a whole bunch more. YouTube.com/Star City Games video. Check that out and be one of many subscribers over that page. Of course, you will get an email as well when we do have content go up on our YouTube page. Again, youtube.com/Star City Games video, as we do get ready here for game number 2 between Friedman and Jessup. A very important tournament here for Danny Jessup. He has cleared out some space on the Season 3 leaderboard. He is currently in the lead by 8 points over Ross Merriam. If things were to end today, Danny Jessup would be going to the Players' Championship. Ross is kind of crossing his fingers and hoping that he doesn't expand that lead very much more. Ben Friedman trying to play spoiler here. Jessup will take a look at his opening hand. We'll see if he wants to keep. He will. Both players will, in fact, and we are underway here in game number 2. Tropical Island is where Danny does start things. For Ben, he does have a Scalding Tarn, which can be land number 1, and it will be, but no crack just yet. Maybe a little scared of Stifle as we head back Jessup's way. Jessup will play another Tropical Island, and he'll just pass the turn back. So when you have an opponent who doesn't play a creature on turn 1, when they're playing Temur Delver, doesn't ponder on turn 1, or any other sort of manipulation, and then on turn 2 doesn't do anything, that's the biggest Stifle in history, I think.
Yeah, you just don't. I mean, but he's playing Omnitel, so Ben's hand isn't forced. Like I said, he'll be fine trading land drops. We're running into that situation again where Danny doesn't have early pressure, and so Ben won't do anything until forced.
Ben has a question. So he's going to step away. And we'll see if we can figure out what that question will be. Of course, judges are useful tools if you're not sure of something. So Ben wants to get a clarification on a ruling here, I'm sure. And if we can figure out what that question was, again, we'll let you guys know. But for now, we will talk about Danny Jessup, number 3 on our Season 3 leaderboard. Of course, a New York player who we've seen a lot of this year, with an invitational top 8 during Season 4, where he lost in the finals to Dylan Donegan. He's got 5 Open Series top 8s with 1 W. He's played 4 years of varsity lacrosse, a New York sports fanatic, and a stock manager by day. I know you are, of course, a Minnesota sports guy, so you're probably not much of a Yankees fan. They did you guys in a lot, the Twins.
They just buy our good players when they get good. It's not like a rivalry. It's just depressing.
Kind of a farm system.
I mean, yeah, pro teams sometimes farm other pro teams. It's really, I don't know. It's one of the less charming parts of baseball, but I really like baseball.
I thought they were going to steal your Joe Mauer for a while there, but he just decided to stay.
Maybe. He's a hometown guy, so I love that. But
I was going to say, do you wish they stole him?
If they wanted to steal him now, it probably would be fine.
He's a little past his prime at this point. It's kind of sad.
You know, he's got great numbers for a catcher and for a first baseman. He's doesn't hit well enough to be a first baseman.
No, he doesn't.
No, anyhow, we still love him. He went to school half a mile from my high school.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a wasteland to take care of Volcanic Island.
He kicked our basketball. We had a state. Our basketball team made the state tournament, and Joe Mauer's team knocked our team out, and that was his third sport, and he was their star player.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know he was that skilled. All right.
Yeah.
Gataxian probe here from Friedman. We'll take a look at Jessup's hand, assuming this will resolve. I'd be surprised if he gets countered. Maybe Ben wants to see if there is a stifle, but it's pretty clear that there is. You can see the stifle. Oh, the Tarmogoyf, a Pyroblast, a Daze, a Spell Snare, and a Volcanic Island.
So Danny does have a Tarmogoyf here, so he has some threats, and you see if he can get one on play, he has a lot of ways to keep Omnitel off balance. Spell Snare, Daze, Pyroblast, those will all be pretty good here. But with only the one man up, it'll be interesting if Ben can try to punch a hole here. The Gataxian probe is really powerful in his deck and how it interacts with Cabal therapies. We saw before he used his discard to punch holes in counter spells until eventually he left Danny with counter spells that didn't do anything. You know, he left him with the soft permission, and then Danny had a 2-for-1 himself, and Danny died with a stifle in his hand that Ben never took.
City of Traders is a little yucky here.
It's not the land you'd want to play.
No. But it's the only land that Ben actually has in his hand right now, so he's going to sacrifice the Scalding Tarn. Stifle will target it. Now Ben's going to have to kind of fight back around this. You see he's got 2 cards in his hand, so he's going to use Force of Will. That's going to remove Dig Through Time. So Ben will have to take 1.
Interesting situation is Ben knew about the stifle here, but because of how his hand was laid out, he just kind of had to play into it. And I think it's important enough that he gets a black mana source that he's willing to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting on what land he wants to search up here, if it'll be Volcanic or if it'll be Underground Sea.
Well, I think it has to be C. He's got the Therapy in his hand. Based on how he's played this line, you know, he got the Jataxian Probe info, and he looks like he's trying to set up for show and tell by getting rid of the cards that would be most likely to stop him here.
Yep, well, there's the Underground Sea.
He knows about the days, so he knows that he can't just go for show and tell here. But if he can take maybe something like Pyroblast, that could set him up for 4th land and then Daze Proof show and tell.
Here's Cabal Therapy. Curious on what will be named here.
Yeah. As far, yeah, I mean, he's going to take Pyroblast.
Okay.
I think that's what he's setting up for, because the only counterspell left in Andrew's hand is Daze. So yeah, and that was the line. If he draws another mana source here, he can play a Daze Proof show and tell.
There's Tarmogoyf. Brainstorm the draw.
So that won't work for the current turn. It means he'll be set back another one.
3 cards coming here for Ben. Pretty good 3 cards, honestly. A land, a Ponder, and a Force of Will.
Right, so what he wants to keep then is he doesn't need the red cards. He doesn't need the Wish or the Pyromancer, because his plan is next turn going to be to make 3 mana, play a 4th land, show and tell with 1 land up and Force of Will backup. He has a Ponder to pitch to it, and then try to show and tell in the Omniscience. And then he can draw the Burning Wish, which is one of the card he puts back.
Yep.
So he will have the combo through a Daze, and he'll have a Force backup for it. Puts a lot of pressure on Danny to have the right card there.
Well, we'll see what 2 cards are going to go back here for Ben. Two cards back here for Brainstorm. Again, not going to play a land because he needs the City of Traders for mana, so he just passes the turn back. And at this point, if you're Ben, fingers crossed that Danny just doesn't draw very well in this situation, though this will be some redraws here in Ponder. So take a look at some cards.
And yeah, Danny's just going to try to scramble to find more pieces of counter magic. He's got the clock down, so at that point, he is just looking for ways to keep Ben from comboing.
Yep. Keep him off balance. Pass the turn back. Wasn't even able to find a card like Wasteland. Wasteland would be huge right now.
That'd be brutal.
Time to float 2 colorless, because when Ben plays a land, which is a Scalding Tarn, City of Traders will have to be sacrificed.
It's game time. Let's see what Danny drew.
Yep.
It better be good.
Here's show and tell. Daze. Sacrifice.
Is there a stifle? There is a stifle.
Yep.
Ben's going to have to force, but if Danny has a spell pierce, he got there.
Yes, he did. Those were some good draw steps. Ponder, I imagine, helped, but
So Spell Pierce will counter Force of Will. Then Stifle will stop the fetch land, which means the Daze will counter the Show and Tell.
and now Ben is in a horrible spot, and I don't even know if it's one that he can get out of now.
He doesn't have enough lands.
It'll have to be Runner. It would have to be, even Runner's not even good now because Runner would be City of Traders into Show and Tell. He Show and Tells in, actually, yeah, Runner would be fine. He Show and Tells in Omniscience and then cast Burning Wish.
He draws a red source, Seek and Wish for Innocent Blood and reset the board, but that will stop him from dying, but it doesn't seem like it'll make him win.
Yeah. Tarmogoyf is going to come across again. Doesn't appear that there is a set of draw steps that Friedman can find here, especially with the Tarmogoyf breathing down his neck.
We may be looking at a game 3.
I think Friedman did everything he was supposed to set up to get himself to that position, but the draw steps were favorable there for Jessup, that's all.
He forced Danny to have to go 2 straight draw steps.
Yep. That's all I really could do.
Now, granted, that's not as unlikely as it sounds because of the number of cantrips in the teamer deck. It's something that Danny certainly could do and did. Tarmogoyf will chip away. No more lands for Ben. We're on to game 3.
We are. Danny Jessup going to tie things up here against Ben Friedman. Teamer Delver and Omnitel getting ready for a 3rd game here. Freeman maybe thinking to himself, is there anything I could have done to get myself out of that situation? And you know, I don't think there is. I think the draws lined up well. I think the draws lined up well there for Jessup. And had Ben gone for Show and Tell much earlier before setting up, it would have got a counter then too. So I think that's just a game that he just ends up losing. You move on with life, and that's why they give you a best of 3. So you get to play a 3rd one, which these 2 players will do here in just a moment. Interesting build of this Omnitel deck, though. Do you like this one, or do you prefer the mono blue version?
It's different in different metas. I'm more comfortable with the mono blue build, but I haven't played enough of this to really say, you know, which one I would want and which one's better. I do like how Ben's being very proactive here.
The addition of Cabal Therapy and Pyromancer are very interesting in this build. I mean, the mono blue build has, you know, fetch lands for Brainstorms, of course, a lot of islands, and, you know, the Cunning Wish package, where this has the Burning Wish package, which gives you a virtual 7 Show and Tells, probably a cleaner kill. And you're being more proactive, I think, on the whole, but you've also got, I think, some pretty disjointed draws, too.
Yeah, so as long as you're willing to play Firemind's Foresight in your sideboard, both decks Wish plus Show and Tell Omniscience and Wish wins. So the question is whether or not you'd rather be playing Young Pyromancers and Cabal Therapies and having a lot of vulnerability to Wasteland, which Ben does have, or whether you'd have Spell Pierces, Snares, and be able to get all basic islands.
Well, Ben's going to re-sideboard a little bit here for game number 3. So while he does that, we will very quickly talk about the Summer Creature Collection here with Star City Games. We've taken the Piglet, the Monkey, is it Kraken?
It's a Kraken.
It's a Kraken. Kraken. And our good friend, Deathrite Salmon. I get paid to say that. Deathrite Salmon. We put it on playmat sleeves and bundles. Yeah. StarCityGames.com/creature collection. I'm gonna hold it together. Deathrite Salmon. Deathrite Salmon. It's not as bad as Delver Squeakerits, but not much is. So can't wait to see what comes out in our fall collection. We know there will at least be 1 hippo. Yeah, but we don't know what's coming after that, so that'll be fun to see. The Deathrite Salmon. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
People really like that one too. There's like sushi in the picture, and the salmon is like mining on dead bones and just having the time of his life. Just it's adorable. I don't know how they do what they do.
But yeah. I mean, Deathrite Shaman's always been like good in fish decks anyway.
So it works out perfect. There you go. Gataxian Probe here from Friedman. We'll take a look at Jessup's
I didn't
hand.
get a chuckle on that. Oh,
No,
man,
you got
you're
nothing.
just
No,
horrible
I
audience.
brickwalled you
Jeez.
really hard, actually.
Jeez.
A Spell Pierce, a Daze, a Force of Will, a Delver of Secrets, an Nimble Mongoose, and a couple of lands. So this is the draw that he actually needs, because now he's actually got something to do on turn 1.
Yeah, this is this kind of draw that you're scared of when you're a combo deck. He's got a turn 1 Delver, he's got a turn 2 creature, and then he's got some blue cards. And Ben does not have ways to remove creatures from the board. Delver of Secrets is the scariest card out of Danny Jessup's teamer deck.
We'll see what threat Danny wants to start off with. I imagine it's Delver. I think it's probably better to go there.
Go for the blue Wild Mikado.
Yeah.
It's just what it's going to be in this matchup.
Friedman will draw. Picked up a copy of Polluted Delta.
I mean, we've seen other games where Danny, in the last 2 games, has done nothing on turn 1. So this is going to play out exactly like the other games, except that Danny will be clocking for 3 a turn, which will just change it'll change the landscape of the whole game.
Friedman will just pass the turn back after playing his land. Checking with the Delver, it's a miss. So just a boring old attack for 1. Friedman going to go down to 18.
We'll pass back.
It appears that way.
Yeah. Not going to go for the turn 2 Tarmogoyf. Delver could be enough by itself.
I don't know if he wants to slide in the Mongoose here or not. He might. Danny might be
good, yeah.
I mean, Danny might be fine just saying, I've got this counter shield up and I don't want to do anything too crazy.
So how worried is he about a turn 3 show and tell with force backup, I think would be the question. Can he beat it anyway?
Yeah, well, he's going to deploy the Nimble Mongoose. So Freeman's going to draw a card. I think he picked up a copy of Dig Through Time.
Yeah, that's not going to help too much. Ben's hand was really well set up for the long fight, but that's not what this game's about.
Yeah, not this particular one. The last 2, yes. This one, no. Another Polluted Delta. Ben with a copy of Show and Tell in hand. You see the Dig Through Time that he picked up for the turn, but all he can do is pass the turn back. Delver Secrets flip. Looks like no, so with that resolved, but before he goes to the draw step, Jessup's going to sacrifice his Misty Rainforest. I think we'll have a Volcanic Island on the way, and we do. The way that works is Delver Secrets has an upkeep trigger where you get to look at the top card. If it is an instant resource, you reveal it, and then when you go to your draw step, you actually draw it. But all that takes place in the upkeep, so Danny able to sacrifice away his fetch land if he doesn't like the card that he's seen with Delver. This will allow him to attack for 2 as well. Nimble Mongoose, almost threshold, 2 cards down there right now. Freeman going to sacrifice Polluted Delta. He's down to 15.
All right, so Ben with a lot of card draw in his hand, but he doesn't have the combo yet.
Yeah. He'll sacrifice another land, go down to 14.
Yeah.
No Stifle to worry about.
And Ben's been even a little fortunate here. Danny's not loading up his graveyard. The Delver hasn't flipped. I would expect that Ben's on a 3-turn clock. Probably because you'll see the Delver flip this turn or next, and then the Mongoose can become a 3/3 at a pivotal time. So he has about 3 turns to set up, which means cards like second Dig Through Time aren't really cards anymore.
Looks like it might be time for a Ponder here. Yep.
No.
City of Traders, a Polluted Delta, and a Scalding Tarn. That's what Friedman's looking at here.
He has Show and Tell in his hand. He's got some Flusterstorms. So City of Traders actually is pretty good here in that it ramps him ahead a mana for the counter war that's inevitably going to happen. Now, he doesn't have the full combo, and there's some cost to taking that City of Traders. So
I think the big cost is that you have to draw those other cards from the Ponder.
Yeah, if there was a real card in here, I definitely think he wants the City. But I don't know if he can afford to draw a fetch land and that. If he takes the fetch land, he can try to power out one of these Dig Through Times. Get a 5th card in the graveyard, 3 mana up, that's 8. Now it probably would just run into a counter spell, and there's also the disaster that your fetch land gets stifled.
Yeah. Now the last 2 didn't get stifled, so I think it's probably safe to assume that this fetch land's probably good to go.
Yeah, if that's true, I do think Ben will draw a fetch land.
He drew the City of Traders.
All right, that's pretty decent as well. Like I said, on the combo, like when he has to figure out his combo turn and set up for that fight, and City will be good on that turn. It gives him the 2 colors to pay for the Show and Tell, and then leaves up as much blue as possible for the counter war.
There's another underground C past the turn back. Jessup checking with Delver.
Still no flip.
Jeez.
Jeez. And
Friedman has been fortunate in that regard.
yeah, so I mean, obviously, if this Delver flipped on turn 2, this game would be looking really different. Friedman still has to try to calculate what the last turn of the game is going to be. So he'll go to 12 here. He probably will have to go to 11 off. He needs to leave himself a bumper for another fetch land or possibly a force of will that could happen. So it's probably still looking at 3 turns. But maybe not. If this Delver actually never just continues to be uncooperative.
Here's an attack for 2 more.
And may have gotten himself a 4th turn, counting this one as turn 1. But just a grip of counter spells on Danny's side. He has at least 2, might have 3 spell pierces. That's gonna be hard.
Well, he's just gonna sit here and do this, right?
Yes.
Just attack, leave my mana up, go.
Delver has to flip eventually, right?
Yeah, I don't have to play anything.
But there is something, Ben's still going a little slower here, wasn't able to go for a dig through time. I mean, there's some dangers of even going for a dig through time if you're Ben. One of the chief dangers being that you're activating spell pierces in Danny's hand, which makes Nimble Mongoose grow.
I mean, you're very comfortable with being a 6-turn clock right now. Realistically, it's going to become a 3-turn clock because that Delver will flip, and then it'll be attacks for 4, but you don't want to make it a 2-turn clock. Haha!
Oof. And what a card to flip off of.
Yeah.
More 1-mana counter spells. So if you're on Ben's side, I think you just figure that Danny has 3 counter spells in his hand. Hopefully not 4, but maybe 4.
At least 3.
At least 3. Could be as many as 5. Could be Force Days and 3 1-mana guys. I don't know if you beat that one. I think he's gonna go for Dig Through Time before that Pyroblast gets to happen.
Yeah, this is all happening on the upkeep. Again, Delver's Secret's trigger resolves on the upkeep. Pyroblast is not in the hand yet for Danny Jessup.
And
Because we're not at his draw step.
You see that City of Traders doing the work that Ben wanted it to do. Extra mana for these counter spell wars means that even if this Dig Through Time gets countered, it will cost Danny 2 spell pierces, so he still gets the 2 for 1. Maybe not in the way he wanted, but he has to start somewhere. And in Danny's spot, it might be a spell pierce plus a Daze. Daze being the worst card here. Yeah, Ben will just pay. Unless he really wants to fight a spell. He could fight Flusterstorm spell fight over this.
Yeah, I think this is actually kind of interesting. So I think it's so important for this Dig Through Time to resolve that he's actually got to use spells.
Ooh, that's worse, but maybe necessary. Well, Flusterstorm, we've had it's Dig Through Time, Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, so that's for 3. Danny can't pay, so it's a hard counter.
So Jessup has another counter spell here. He lets Flusterstorm resolve 3 times on the spell pierce, doesn't pay any of the times, and then he counters with another spell. So Flusterstorm has 1 over spell pierce, Dig Through Time still in the stack.
Just remember, if this counterspell fight goes long enough and Danny gets enough cards in his graveyard, he has 2/6. He has 6 points of damage in play. So this is card 6 going into the yard. And if Danny gets to burn off that Daze, this may all just be worth it.
Yeah, this is the concern.
Is that Ben has cost himself a turn by letting Danny cash out these counter spells. And you see Ben, I think, being aware of that, may just let this get countered rather than burning another counter on it.
Yeah, might have to slope a bit.
I'm interested to see if Danny decides to Daze it anyway.
Well, 4 cards in the graveyard right now. He's got 3 fetch lands and a spell pierce. Spell pierce would be number 5, so Daze would actually be spell number 6.
Oh, that's right. The Pyroblast is on top of the deck.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's not a good play then, but yeah, it's getting close. Gonna let the dig get countered.
Pyroblast is a draw.
I'm a little confused by Ben's line. If he had not going to burn off the second Flusterstorm, I'm not entirely sure why he didn't just pay for the first Spell Pierce.
Time for Ben on tap. I guess the thought is if I draw Omniscience this turn, but I think Ben knows what he's drawing this turn.
Yeah, if you weren't going to go after the second counter spell, you could just pay, and then if you were going to fold to it, then just let everybody know you're folding to it. Maybe we have one of the cards in his hand off, though. Interesting to see how he plays it. Is at 8, so he does have 2 turns here. That fetch line will put him to 7, so he can crack it. When he does, though, he will lose the City of Traders. His draw of a land for turn was not being cooperative.
Yeah, not very interested in that.
He knows there's a Pyroblast in Danny's hand. He may suspect a Daze as well. He currently has 6 mana in play, 9 if you count, 9 for a Delve spell. Could go up to 10, or even 11 if he wants to crack a fetch land.
Show and tell time, maybe? I think this might actually be a fake show and tell, by the way.
Wants to get the Pyroblast.
I think this might be a fake show and tell.
Can he? I kind of like this. If he has another dig in his hand and that's the real spell that needs to resolve, then this is the play he has to make.
I think this is the I don't actually have anything show and tell, but you're really scared of show and tell because it's show and tell.
You have
so
to
you
counter
have to counter it.
You have to counter it. Is heads up play by Ben. Now this is just theatrics. If it's a fake show and tell, he's got to sell it.
Well, you
right?
got to sell it.
You got to sell it.
You got to sell it all the way. You can't not sell it. Yeah, this is a fake show and tell because his hand is dig through time Flusterstorm 2 lands. So
Yeah. It puts the card in the graveyard for him to do dig and Flusterstorm. That's what I like about it.
yeah.
If he plays, yeah, he has to play a fetch that will get rid of the city. There's number 5.
They sacrifice this, go down to 7.
He doesn't even have to sacrifice the land, actually.
Well, I think part of the reason he's sacrificing is because that's card 6 in the that's card 6 in the graveyard. And so he just wants dig to be on the cheap.
In case he needs to take a 1-mana blue spell.
Yeah. A little bit of Hollywooding here for Friedman, but you gotta hard sell it.
Danny just has the soul read, just said, okay, show and tell resolves.
Yeah,
that would have been pretty
great.
would have been brutal.
Well, that's either one of 2 things. If you let it resolve and you're right,
You just are a genius,
you're
you're a maniac.
Yeah,
I
you're a
don't know.
best of SCG life moment. And if you're wrong, well, I guess you're a best of SCG life moment in the wrong way. Here's dig through time.
All right. So he's hoping to find the full combo here.
I mean, this is the real prize.
Danny has a Daze. That's not going to help any.
He's got a Force of Will too, but Ben has Flusterstorm in his hand. So Ben actually set this up pretty good for what it's worth. I give Ben a little bit of credit here. He's done a nice job of setting this up and making it so that dig through time gets to resolve.
Ben's going to go to 1 next turn.
Yeah.
All right. Flusterstorm it back. Yeah, he is on pace to get this.
Yeah, because
if the dig hits.
Yeah, if he had Flusterstorm, he could have used it to resolve show and tell, blah, blah, blah. So he's done a good job at this.
Ben leaves up a black mana.
We have our head judge here, I believe, talking with the players about something. So if we can find out what that is, we will certainly let you guys know. It looks like probably a ruling of Flusterstorm and the Storm Trigger and all that stuff.
So I think they're discussing how the Petals of Insight combo works.
Oh, for game number 1. Interesting. Yeah, if your deck is not in multiples of 3, yeah. And, you know, that's a weird thing that some people have never seen before. It's very strange. If your deck's in multiples of 3, it doesn't work. If your deck is not in multiples of 3, it doesn't work.
Well, it works, but less well. Yeah, you can't just stack it if it's not a multiple of 3.
Yeah.
As long as there's a stack of 3 that contained the counterspell and a Burning Wish, which is actually reasonably likely.
It's possible. But that was a long time.
Yeah,
That was a long time ago. Here we go. Resolving dig through time. Omniscience is probably one he has to take.
Yeah, so he didn't find show and tell plus omniscience. That's what he was hoping for. Or did he?
We know he found omniscience. I don't think he found show and tell. Now he does have enough mana
to Burning Wish.
Yeah, to Burning Wish for show and tell. So I mean, it's got to be perfect next turn. There's no room for error here.
If he draws a land, he can play around days. It's a Ponder Omniscience.
All right.
Okay, Ponder, sure.
It's a rebuy. Is there a daze? Uh-oh. That resolves, okay. 2, 3.
Burning Wish,
okay.
that'll do it.
We're getting somewhere. Well, okay, so Burning Wish finds show and tell to put Omniscience in play.
But then you're right, then you don't get any.
But he needs a thing to do.
Okay, so can he dig through time for all of this? That might be his best play. Remember that fetch land in his hand actually isn't a land. He can't crack it because he'll be going to 1. Jataxian Probe doesn't do anything either because he can't cast it.
Yeah, no, he's actually got everything that he can actually do right now. So he's at 7. He's going to go down to 1 from the attack. So
he can't take dig because he won't have the mana to cast it.
Yeah, he has. I mean, he has to draw Burning Wish and dig through time over this Ponder resolving and his draw step next turn. And I suppose if everything is resolving, then this is fine to put Gataxian Probe there. Yeah, because he's going to draw Burning Wish. Burning Wish is basically just a 5-mana show and tell.
So he's going to hope for Burning Wish for show and tell in the Omniscience, hope it works, and then hope that free dig through time finds him another Burning Wish.
Yeah, I mean, this is all predicated on Jessup having nothing. That Wasteland is actually something. I don't know if he knows that or not.
That Wasteland wins him the game.
Yep, that Wasteland is something.
Because Ben's last land in hand is a fetch land.
Yep.
And he's a 1.
All right, to the wish.
Wow. All right.
We have to go look at the wish board now and see if there are any outs. I don't think there are.
Delver's a 3-2. Mongoose a 3-3 at this point.
Pyroclasm's not going to get it done. Also, only a singular red mana on the battlefield. Innocent Blood is not an out in this situation. Ben
double check.
Yeah, Ben's doing the same thing we are, which is double checking his wish sideboard to see if there's an out here.
I don't believe so. And Wasteland, a timely out there for Danny Jessup.
Yeah, cutting Friedman from 5 mana down to 4. You wouldn't think it's that big of a deal. But it appears to be a game winner in this situation. Ben gonna cast Probe. See Jessup's hand. Well, Jessup had it pretty stacked up good anyway.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's
Spell Piercing days.
That's not going to help anything.
Yeah.
So he has to probe there. If his last card was just show and tell, then he had a shot.
Yeah, but he knew the top card.
Not into that.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Danny Jessup's going to win this match over Ben Friedman. 2-1. Teamer Delver will take care of the innovative build of Omnitel there from Ben Friedman and Danny Jessup. A very important tournament for him. He's off to a great start. He's 4-0.